Good morning, everyone. Hope everybody's energized for our final day of the conference. And I've heard so many good things and met so many wonderful people. And I know I'm energized by your energy. So we're going to start this morning by having a salute to the flag, if you please stand. And I would invite veterans to the stage to help us launch our day today. This side has a railing. That's the side I use. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless. Thank you. Okay. All right. Now for our wake-up call this morning, we'd like to welcome the talented Noah Webster Micro Society Magnet School Drum Circle. Now you all repeat that. The Micro Society, directed by Miss Abby Sutcliffe. So I think they're ready. Lisa, are they ready to come? Okay. All right. Take it away. Oh, we're going to take that away. Okay. Wow, that was amazing. Oh my goodness. Are we awake now? Yes, yes. Wow, such talent. It makes you so proud to be on the Board of Education with our kids. Okay, next we have on our agenda is a very exciting speaker. We have Craig Levesque, is the American Dean of the Liberal Arts, Humanities, Social and Behavioral Sciences at Southern Connecticut State University. Okay. Previously, he served as associate professor and chair of the music department at Southern. For the past 15 years, Dr. Levesque has also been the director of the university band at Southern. He received a Bachelor of Arts in Music and Bachelor of Science in Music Education from the University of Connecticut, a Master of Music from Yale University, and an education degree in Educational Leadership from the University of Hartford. An active orchestral trumpeter and freelance musician. Wow, what talent. Okay, Dr. Levesque has performed numerous orchestras and choral groups. A frequent educational leadership clinician and presenter, Dr. Levesque has been delivered presentations throughout the country. There's a longer biography, if you can imagine, in the booklet, so you can look at more of his studies. So, without further ado, is Dr. Levesque. Okay, there you go. Okay. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Nice to have you.
Thanks very much. Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for having me today. I don't know what lottery I lost to have to go on after the drum line, but they were fantastic. A nice round of applause for them again. It's already felt really quite homey here. I got to catch up with Chief Dooley. He was the chief of police at Southern for many years, and now is here as a vendor, which is kind of weird to see out of uniform. But so it's great to be here. Is anybody else an alum of Southern here? All right, so we've got quite a few owls, so I feel like I have a good crowd here, a supportive crowd. So welcome. While you're energized and while you're here, ready to get started, I wondered if we could start with an activity. Now you're getting nervous. Don't get nervous, okay? I'm not going to ask you to sing or anything. But I do want you to keep the beat, okay? So you can clap, right? I just heard you do it, so I know you can do it. Now I want you to clap with me, and I want you to actually watch me on the stage and not on the camera, okay? So just clap with me. Brilliant. Let's see if you can do it with me. Oh, pretty good. Okay, so you're awake, and I can see that you can follow directions well, which is good. Now go ahead and do it without me. Just do it together, but without me. All right. Get faster. Pretty good, actually. Better than I thought it would be, okay? Could you do it a little worse? Because that would be better for me. I will say that it was a little more together with me, which is good. And, of course, ensembles can work without conductors, too. But we do have some job security. So who am I? You're thinking, okay, you're not actually a professional conductor. I'm not hearing the New York Philharmonic or anything on your dossier, and that's true. I am the Associate Dean for the Liberal Arts at Southern. That's the Arts, Humanities, Social, and Behavioral Sciences. So I work with 14 departments at Southern. But I've also been privileged to be the Director of Bands for the last 15 years. And so we had a concert just a couple nights ago, and which is great. So now you're thinking CABE, right? Come on. You've got all sorts of resources, this very important group. Couldn't you get like a real professional conductor instead of this guy who does it on the side? Well, let me tell you why I think Lisa and Patrice chose me instead of maybe the conductor from the New Haven Symphony, whom I know pretty well. So this is Gustavo Dudamel with the Los Angeles Philharmonic, and you're going to hear a video clip from him in just a minute. So if you're really itching for a real professional, I'm going to give it to you. Don't worry. But I want to talk a bit about, today I'm here to talk a bit about some parallels between maybe what I do in leading a group and what you do in leading communities and educators. And I want to point out his group, right? And he's a brilliant conductor. Any of you familiar with Dudamel? So if afterwards, not right now, afterwards, just YouTube, Dudamel and find some of his videos because they're just incredible. But his ensemble here is the Los Angeles Philharmonic, and if you look closely, that's Yo-Yo Ma as the soloist, and his group is made up of 100 or so professionals. They are brilliant. They've studied at university to be at the top of their game. They're paid handsomely, usually 6 figures, all of them. And so their whole purpose really vocationally is to just do as best that they can to prepare their music. They perform at a very high level. They even have some notoriety when they're playing with this ensemble, the people, right? So they have a little bit of fame to go along with being in this group. Okay, so you're seeing the parallels to the Board of Education, right? You have some fame, right? So this is my group. This is my group. And I don't think it's any less important, but we have different missions, right? So my group, okay, here's a picture. We have some music majors, right? They are folks that are really trying to train to be professional musicians as a vocation, and they're great. We also have some non-music majors, folks that are just interested in playing past high school. We have some faculty in the group, both music faculty and non-music faculty, some in French and library sciences, etc. We have some community professionals, right? We have an MD, PhD from the Yale Psychiatry School who plays in the group. And we have some IT professionals. This is really a community group, right? And that's who I get to lead. Does that sound a little bit more like what the makeup of your boards are, right? I actually found out, I didn't know this, and truth be told, full disclosure, my mother was a Board of Education member in Wallingford Public Schools for a long time. She's since retired from that, but I knew she said she didn't get paid. But I asked Patrice, I said, how many people are getting paid for this? And she said, no, that's illegal. We can't pay anybody in the state of Connecticut. So why are they doing this? Why is my group coming to do this, right? It's not for pay. I can tell you that I don't pay them, right? In fact, they have to sacrifice. They have to be there. They have to commit to being there once a week on Thursday nights. They have to commit to being at the performances. They have to commit to being at the dress rehearsals. And they have to commit to being, to dealing with me on a regular basis, right? And it's not because of the pay. It's because they're passionate about it, because they want to be part of something that's bigger than just playing on their own. And I think that, nice. It's an encore. It's okay, I can talk pretty loud. At Southern, we have a drum line too. Chief Dooley has heard it many times. And so I'm fully familiar with the rehearsal fun that we have in trying to put them in one place and not hear them. So we've had the police called on our drum lines for folks being too loud, so I understand. But we do this because we're passionate about it. So now you're thinking, well, could possibly be the connection between conducting an ensemble and being a board member or being a superintendent? Well, here's a quote from Einstein. And he said the theory of relativity, perhaps one of the greatest scientific discoveries, perhaps of all time, right? Obviously a brilliant physicist. And what does he say? He says this was by intuition for him. And music was the driving force behind that intuition. That's fascinating to me. My parents had me study violin from the time I was 6. My new discovery is a result of musical perception. Have you ever heard that? That's amazing. So if Einstein, right, if Einstein can derive the theory of relativity from his musical studies, hopefully we can grab something from leadership from it. So that's why we're here. So I promised Dudamel, and here we are, a short clip about what conducting is from Dudamel.
To get an idea of what a conductor does, we turn to Gustavo Dudamel, the conductor of the LA Philharmonic.
The action of conducting is connecting with the musician. My right hand normally it gives the beat. The baton is an extension of the arm for everybody to see. And if it's a little bit loud with my left hand, I can say less, or I have to, do an entrance to somebody, or if I want longer. It's a combination of things. I think the conductor is not only the person that moves in front of an orchestra and shows the tempo or the dynamics. It's a person that have to guide things that make the action of conducting or making music kind of magical. At the end, the main thing is the music. The rest of us, we are elements that bring that alive. To be swimming in that unique and amazing sea of sound, and then to have the privilege to be in front of an orchestra and give a beat to them, and they start and they follow. Not only that gesture, but that beautiful desire of living the music is the best thing in the world.
It's funny, I don't remember a drum line in the Fifth Symphony, but I could be wrong. So let's talk about what I see as our connections, right? And hopefully, I'm not on a board member. I'm not a Board of Education member. I'm not a superintendent. So hopefully there are some connections that you can draw as experts in education and in your fields. But I wanted to make some comments and I think some observations that I think are applicable. So one of the first things that we do, and there's a lot to go into conducting that isn't just moving your arms, right? First thing that I think about is building trusting relationships. So I'm asking a group to go in front of a public audience, right, and perform in something that most of them are not training professionally to do, right? So they have to get up and they have to perform, and they have to trust me that I'm preparing them well for that I'm leading them in the right path, and that I'm putting music in front of them that they can play well, and that is also going to stretch them. And I think there are some connections there to what you do. And also, I have to trust them, right? So they have to prepare quite a bit to be on stage, and I'll talk about sort of the expectations that we have. But I have to trust that they're actually going to do what I ask them to do, and of course the next thing is that I'm holding them accountable to that, and they're holding me accountable to that. So I'm sure there's some mutual accountability that you're thinking about with your fellow board members, right? For me, mutual accountability means that when I say, okay, giving them a realistic goal for them to do for next rehearsal, that they actually do it, right? And when not always happens, but I, carefully hold them accountable for that. Well, we didn't quite get to where we needed to this week. We've got to try to do that better next week. As a conductor, we're almost only modeling leadership, right? Almost only modeling leadership. I didn't tell you when I got up here, right? We're going to get a little louder, we're going to get a little softer, we're going to get a little faster. I did that with no words, right? And you followed, right? So what type of leadership can you get from that? Well, modeling expectations and modeling what you're hoping for is certainly a good leadership trait. So what does that mean if you're not a conductor? Well, for me, it means making sure that I get there early, that I get there and make sure that everything's organized, that everything is ready to go, that I'm well prepared, that I've looked through my scores, and hopefully that the students are picking up on that, and they're saying, wow, he looks prepared, he's definitely has a good command of what's happening, I need to do that as well. And I'm certainly holding them and accountable for that. As a conductor, I'm listening all the time. That's pretty much all I do. Once I'm actually conducting, I can't then yell, right? I might like to, right? I might like to actually say softer or louder, but I can't, especially in a performance. So I have to trust that they've learned, but I also have to make sure that I'm listening and gesturing and modeling and demonstrating that clear direction. Speaking very little. In rehearsals, actually one of my goals is to speak as little as possible. And that's not easy to do. And it can be something that I think maybe in your communities you see this. We have some folks that maybe like to hear themselves talk. I'm sure that never happens. But for me, I'm trying to limit how much I'm talking. In an ensemble, it's not just me leading, it's a communication, right? So it's a two-way street. Lots of times ensembles think that I'm just there to keep the beat, right? I'm a very expensive metronome. And back in the olden days, we're talking box time, there were conductors that had a big stick, not to beat people with, but actually just to hit on the floor to keep that beat like this, right? That's not really what modern conductors do anymore. We're having a communication to try to guide the ensemble musically. And hopefully you're having that communication in your arenas too. And in fact, the ensemble doesn't do well when there's just somebody in front of them doing nothing except keep the beat. And I know this, I just saw this. So we had a great student conductor with me this semester. And he's a student conductor, right? He's not done this before. He did some choir work, but he's not done an instrumental group. And he's a good technician, right? He could definitely get the beat patterns, but no face, really very little. And the ensemble didn't know how to react. And he kept asking, like, what's going on? Why are they not sounding like how you're sounding with them? And I'm like, well, I'm moving a little bit more, right? I'm showing them more things, and they're able to react, right? So again, what parallels can you draw from that? I can't draw all of them for you, but I'm sure there are some, right? Making sure that you're showing that passion, your direction, and then hopefully taking it in as well. He said, Dudamel said, to guide and inspire in there. And that's certainly something that I'm doing while I'm on the podium and in class. I'm patient. See, there's our drum line. That's like I did know in advance that there was going to be a drum line, but I had forgotten. Patiently teaching and providing some history and context. Is that something that you do, right, in your community? I think it probably is. Back in my youth, I remember that at some point in the week, there was some big packet that showed up at my mother's door. Is that still the way it works, or is it PDFs now? It's all electronic, right? And she had a big packet of stuff for some context that she had to read through and patiently get through in preparation for the meeting. So that's very similar. So what am I doing before I get to a rehearsal? First I have to pick the pieces. Then I have to decide, how am I going to teach that? What's the history that goes into it? How can I inform the ensemble? Because it makes a difference, right? You play a contemporary piece different than you play a classical piece. And so the techniques are different. Also, I have some experience, right? I have some experience that they don't. I've been not just a conductor, but a professional musician. So I'm trying to impart some of those things. And I'm sure you're doing this in your community. You've got more knowledge, you've got more context, you've got more experience than some of your community members trying to impart that. We're trying to encourage our members to meet their fullest potential. I mean, that's my goal as a teacher. I'm still a certified music teacher. Thought I'd get applause for that one, but it's not. I did teach in Region 11 for a couple years before I went to Southern. Is anybody here from Region 11? Okay, so no. All right, excellent. So Parish Hill, that's where I was at for 2 years before I went to Southern. So I still have that in the background. I never know if I might need that. I still got that certificate. But we're encouraging our members to achieve to their fullest potential, right? That's all that I'm doing. A success story for me, first semester freshman oboist, right? And boy, leading up to that concert on Thursday she's very nervous. She's got good skills, but even up till the dress rehearsal, it's like, I don't know if this solo is going to go so well. And she was nervous about it. But I said, no, you got to do this. And she did very well in the concert. And so the next time she does this, it's going to be even better. So those types of things, leveraging their strengths. I know that in my ensemble, my brass section is quite strong. I've got some areas where I need to build up some of the ensemble. And I imagine in boards, you have that same thing, right? You've got some that have some additional experience, maybe some professional experience, maybe they're a professional educator or have some experience in the educational field and have been on the board for 15 years. And then you have others that have just come on and need to have that mentorship happening. I'm always assessing. I'm constantly assessing. So again, as I'm listening, I'm assessing. Is that too loud? Is that got to come out a little bit more? Where's the melody? Am I balancing? All of these things play into, I think, what you're doing as well. And then, of course, I'm thinking creatively. And I'm hoping that as educational leaders in the state, that you're thinking creatively too. For me, it's, I have to come up with a new theme for each semester of our concerts, right? This last week was space themed, so it was stars, Earth, Moon. We planned that in the summer. The concert was on Thursday, and I do want to do a public shout out to NASA. They delayed their launch very well, almost timed it exactly. The day before my concert, they had their launch, so I do appreciate that. But again, we're thinking creatively, trying to inspire that ensemble and the audience to come and be engaged. And I think you're doing that as a community as well. In terms of leadership, I'm always trying to lead with really clear and rigorous expectations. So if I take a step into my administrator role, try not to do that too much, but I definitely have to do it for some. My administrator role, I'm actually working on conflicts. Interpersonal conflicts is probably half of my job. And what I'm finding is that, probably 90% of those conflicts are dealing with lack of clarity, right? Brene Brown is classic for saying, to be clear is to be kind, and to be unclear is to be unkind. Be very clear with our expectations. For me, it's in the ensemble, I'm setting up, this is when the concert is. This is what I want you to wear. This is what we're going to play. And we're talking about that all the way through the semester. In administration, it's the same thing, I think. And then, of course, the expectations are high. In music, I would say, and in the arts, the expectations are very high. One thing I talk through with my group is I say, how many of you would be pretty satisfied in a hard class with an A-? I'll ask you. Well, this is probably type A in this room, but would any of you be fairly satisfied with an A-? Be honest. Yeah, not bad, A-. So that's about a 90, right? For rounding up. That's out of every 10 notes, one of them is wrong. If I ask my ensemble to just randomly play one of every 10 notes wrong, but not at the same time, that concert sounds really bad, right? I tell them, this is not an A- class. You need to be 99.99% on all the time. And think about that. What is happening when you're in a group, right? In a public performance with people watching you, and now we're streaming, people watching you across the country with students, you have to play all the right notes at the right time, in the right dynamic, matching and in tune with the people next to you, without speaking. This is hard, right? You talk about what skills do you get when you're in an ensemble, right? Thinking back to, what are we doing in the schools? Those skills are very useful, right, in getting along with people and, applicable and getting into vocations later on that aren't just music. So we're capitalizing on our ensemble strengths. Again, I talked about different sections and making sure that we're improving them, improving the sections. This is a marathon for me, right? I've been doing this 15 years. Sadly, sometimes people graduate and I've got to replace them. Not sadly, that's good. That's what we want them to do. But we've got different strengths and it moves. Same like what you do. People don't stay on boards for 30 years usually. Has anybody been on the Board of Education for 30 years? Nope, nobody. Maybe one. Okay, that's probably a good thing. Much of musical leadership is service. Do you feel like servants as board members and superintendents? I think you probably do, right? And that's a lot of leadership, I think, is figuring out what can you do to make sure that the ensemble sounds better. It's not about me, right? It's all about what's in front of me. And of course, administrative skills are required. I would say 10% of my job is actually conducting, and 90% of my job is moving chairs, making photocopies, making sure that the poster is finished, putting up in social media, doing some fundraising, right? So that's a lot of the job, and of course, understanding that leadership, that part of that is important. And of course, remaining humble. So there's a joke about conductors. Actually, there's a lot of jokes about conductors. What's the difference between God and a conductor? God doesn't think he's a conductor, right? So there's this sort of aura, right? We're getting it up here now. We just got that up here. Okay, we're good. So, right, there's this persona of a conductor, and it really can't be like that, right? I think Gustavo doesn't have that, honestly. He came up and he was teaching youth. Ensembles. He knows how to teach. He's not like that, but some are. Not me, I hope. Right? I'm remaining humble. When I go and I tell my group, nobody's coming to hear me conduct. Nobody wants to see this. It gets very old very quickly. Nothing's happening, right? They're coming to see you, right? And so that's why, I'm the only one not facing the ensemble or not facing the audience, right? It's all about the students. It's all about the ensemble. And I think that's what you're thinking too, right? It's not about being on the board. I know it's not for notoriety. I know for a fact it's not for pay. But keeping that focus on who are we serving. Of course, timing and tempo, right? Starting and stopping is pretty much the primary gig, right? Making sure I can start you together and stop together is really important. Pacing, right? So how is this connecting, right? Starting and stopping. Man, this guy, how much longer is this guy going to go? I've only got 10 more minutes, right? But I'm going to get there, okay? So pacing, right? I assume that the board has a pretty good opportunity to bring up new initiatives potentially. You're figuring out curriculum, you're dealing with personnel matters, and you have some choices as to how those things go. For me, it's pacing content and pacing different pieces. So if I put the wrong piece up at if I put maybe a really great piece, maybe a really great initiative up when they can't handle it, when your community can't handle it maybe, what happens? Has anybody ever done that before? Like, this is a really good initiative. Community's not ready, and what happens? It doesn't go well, right? Same for me. I've got a whole library of pieces that I've purchased that we have not done because I thought this is going to be great. And sometimes it's trial and error, and I put it in front of the group, and we rehearsed it for a couple weeks, and then I quickly realized, not going to happen this semester, right? And sometimes I think that happens for us as leaders in different arenas too. Again, the right piece done at the wrong time could be really bad. Time management is certainly really important for me too. So I know I've watched some board meetings. I haven't been part of them, but time management's pretty critical, right? You don't get to the end of the agenda, things can be problematic. For me, same. I mean, in a class, and this is the difference between one of our musical groups and, say, another class at the university. I say, at the end of this class, we're doing a performance. Something's happening where the audience is going to hear you. If I don't get to some of the content in my math class, we just don't get to that content. Nobody knows, right? But here, we got to get something on the stage. So, and I know it's the same for you. So, just some things to think about as you're leaving, right? And deciding what am I going to apply when I've left this conference. What is your mission? Right? What are you here for? Gustavo Dudamel has a different mission than I do. He's a great conductor, an amazing conductor, but his audience, is different than mine. His stakeholders are different than mine, and his mission is different than mine. His mission, I think, is to have the highest quality music, making sure that he's engaged with a diverse audience. And we try to do that, but that's not my primary goal, right? I'm not trying to make money selling tickets. Our shows are free. Is anybody selling tickets to your board meetings? No. Okay, your shows are free too. Excellent. So what's your primary mission? For me, it's trying to develop those students, right? Right, when that oboe player hit that solo and got through that, which I could see a sense of relief afterwards, that's a win for me. I define that as success, right? We got through that performance, and I think it was effective. So that's a success. Did we play everything perfectly? We did not, but we did a pretty high quality performance. Who are your stakeholders? It's good to always list those and try to, maybe in a meeting say, who are we serving, right? Of course, students are going to be at the top, but there's others. We're serving parents, we're serving community members. We might be even thinking about who are our employers at the end, right? And how are we preparing our students for graduation and being productive citizens? Think about how you're defining success, and what metrics are you really looking at? I'm a kind of a data guy too, so I give talks on using data to make decision making in other arenas. I've done 3-hour talks. I have 3 hours, right? No? Sorry. So how are you defining success, and what are your metrics? Are you talking about them regularly? Probably you are, but it's funny when I'm talking with some departments in higher ed, sometimes it's not clear what our metrics are, and hopefully you've set those out. And of course, holding yourself accountable and assessing is really important, and that's what we're doing in an ensemble. So I asked permission for this, by the way. I figured I have a group of really the educational leaders of the state of Connecticut here. And I'm an arts educator. And of course, I would lose my arts educator card if I didn't do a little bit of advocacy. So I am going to do a little bit of advocacy here and show some data of why arts are important in the schools. And I hope you agree with me. By the end of this, I hope you really agree with me. By the way, before I move on, this is a group of Gear Up students that I had the privilege of working with. Are you all familiar with Gear Up? Gear Up is a federal grant process that the state, the federal government offers, and it's competitive. Southern was part of a grant for several years, where you're working longitudinally across several years to work with students from middle to high school, giving them additional academic enrichment and opportunities, and then hopefully following them into college and moving them through undergraduate study. So I got a chance to work with about 250 students primarily from New Haven Public Schools, I was the arts coordinator, which was a great, awesome job. And I got an opportunity to schedule things like, different arts experiences for the students and taking them to art shows. It was really, and music shows, it was awesome. So this was a group of students at the very beginning with a theatrical thing at the Lyman Center at Southern. So, and you'll see some other pictures. So this is Miguel Cardona. You've heard of him? Excellent. Let me read that for you because it's small. Music is a way for our students to find themselves and learn critical thinking skills. In fact, music probably does more to develop critical thinking skills and analytical thinking and improvisation than many other topics we spend time on in school. For me, it's an integral part and one of the best ways we can nurture the talent that students have. If you're a superintendent and you're thinking, man, I need some data, I need some quotes, right, to save our music programs, save our arts programs, give me my card. I'm happy to provide those. And here's one. You say, well, Dr. Cardona really wants the arts, and I believe he does, right? But now you're saying, I need some data, right? I need some data. I'm a superintendent, I'm a board member. Why is this important? Because it can be so tempting. I'm going to say this. When I was teaching in public school, I had a leader who is not teaching there anymore, so hopefully I'm not getting anybody in trouble. But the person said, you can have more time in music when it's on one of the standardized tests. Is that sentiment still happening? I hope it's not, okay, especially as we're coming out of the pandemic, because there's a lot of value in what the arts do for students, and I think you agree with that and how important this is. Let's talk about academics, though, right? Why are we doing this? First, you should study music and art and drama and theater and dance because they're important. But if you need some things to help with bolstering the argument, take a look at this longitudinal study. It's a little bit dated, but they don't do a lot of longitudinal studies on this, but it's still very much cited. Talking about mean GPA of high school students in this study group, which was quite large. 4-point scale. The lowest on let's see, the dark purple or the dark pink there is folks that had low socioeconomic status and low activity in the arts, about 2.55 GPA. And all the way on the right is the overall sample. That's everybody, all socioeconomic statuses. And then in the middle, low socioeconomic status, high arts activity, outperformed the whole population. Go to mean math GPA, similar, right? Overall, high arts, low socioeconomic status, and they are outperforming. Why is this? I'll answer that in a second. Here's some more data. Same study. Percent of 13 to 17-year-olds who did not graduate from high school, right? 22% no arts, low socioeconomic status, low arts involvement. 7% everybody, 4% low socioeconomic status and high arts activity. Why is this happening? Is it because the arts are magic? Well, Einstein might say so. It's because they're connected, right? You just saw that. You just saw that on the stage, right? They're building a connection they have some type of connection with their colleagues. They're part of something bigger. The arts play other relevant findings. The arts play a key role in keeping students in high school and graduating on time. That's a metric I'm sure you're looking at. How are students graduating? What are our dropout rates? Students at risk of dropping out cite participation in the arts as the reason that they're staying in school. I see that in my own house. I mean, my daughter's, she's never dropping out. I'll make sure that she stays on it. But why is she going? She's not, I know that we have a lot of educators here, and I'm sorry to say that she's not excited about every subject. But I know she's excited about going for that stage band rehearsal, right? In a 5-year study of 175,000 first-time ninth graders in Texas, the authors found that cumulative credits in the arts were consistently associated with reduced dropout, even after controlling for other factors. Those are real data. And here's the most recent one I could find, 2019. In let's look at this, a randomized controlled trial. This is a real study, right? With about 10,500 students in Houston, largely at the elementary level. The benefits for students in terms of reduction in disciplinary infractions, increases in compassion for others, and improvements in writing achievement. So I know another metric you're probably looking at is mental health, right? And how can we improve our students' mental health, anxiety issues? How do we help them in those arenas? Well, the arts are a way to do that, right? In fact, Miguel Cardona talks about how we're underestimating the value of the arts in bringing people together and healing, right? And I think that the arts have a real role in that. So please, when you're looking at the data and saying, we could really use some additional math and English, and I get that, don't take it at the cost of the arts, please. In terms of this is another outcome. In terms of academic outcomes, research has shown that participation in theater and music is associated with academic engagement, et cetera, et cetera. Let's put it in perspective here with this photo. So these are, again, some of my Gear Up students. Lady Minnie Mouse here on the floor went to music school in the South, right, after graduating. I'm proud to say that right in the middle there with the highest hand raised, went to Southern after finishing high school. Graduated Southern early, and that's not an easy feat, I'm going to be honest. Graduated Southern early with a communications degree. That's a huge win. How did she do that? With a lot of dual enrollment courses that we offered as part of that program. She started Southern with 15 credits. So these programs can work, right? And she probably would have done excellent anyways, but I'm just going to brag on her, right? So what are some takeaways here? I think music leadership and conductors, and K-12 educational leaders like yourselves have a lot in common. I think their leadership skills are applicable across different arenas, and hopefully there's some things that you can take back and say, I never really thought about it in that way. Keeping our primary stakeholders in front of us, front of mind, is really, really critical. And folks, the arts are essential as part of our holistic public education. Before I let you go, I have one shout out. I'm very proud also of a new program at Southern, music therapy. This is a brand new program, again, talking about the healing of the arts. And this is a program that you can't get anywhere else in the state of Connecticut. And I think this is going to be a start of a trend. So, talk to your guidance counselors. We'll take all your students. But look, the arts are important. I hope you agree. I hope you agree that it isn't just about all the typical core subjects that we have in school, which are very important, but the arts are important and leadership is important. I want to thank you for being active educational leaders here in the state of Connecticut, and it's a privilege to be here this morning to work with you. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. I don't have any more time, but I'll take any questions for 2 minutes, and then I'll be available afterwards. I didn't bring an ensemble today. I could have sent the link ahead of time so you could watch it on Thursday night. It's pretty cool.
There's a question over here. Go ahead. First, I just want to thank you for validating arts' significant importance to student learning. That every student has a gift, and some of them really rise to the occasion when they are reading their passion, such as music or art, or anything that really touches an aspect of which they're really passionate about or learning to be.
Absolutely. I agree with that completely.
So thank you so much.
Absolutely. I would absolutely concur with that, of course. I mean, we're seeing, if you take a look at those data, again, I think that the arts are providing an opportunity for, I mean, that's what Dr. Cardona says, an opportunity for folks to find their talents, right? Not everybody is naturally inclined in certain areas, right? I think this is what Einstein said. Everybody is a genius, but if you're judging a fish by how well he climbs a tree, he's gonna think he's stupid his whole life, right? We have folks that this is what their gift is, and if we don't allow this, right? And of course, in my group is a classic example of this. We have folks that are coming in just to do this. That MD, PhD doesn't have to be there. He's making fine money at Yale, and he's gifted in a lot of ways. But he's been an integral part of my group for a long time because he wants to do it. And I think students can find those passions in the arts, and I think the culture of the building certainly benefits from that.
Thank you. So thank you so much. This was wonderful, and I also think there's an opportunity to study the value of the arts. The arts for the arts' sake is obviously key, but infusing the arts in non-arts subjects and giving teachers license to express themselves in their subject areas through the arts will enrich their professional life and teaching and learning for students and teachers as well. So I hope we get to do that more and more, and thank you for being a leader on that.
Absolutely, thank you. And I agree. I mean, if we can have our I mean, many of our teachers are also, especially in grade school, or maybe in the upper levels, are really focused on their discipline, but of course have talents just like everybody else in some of these areas. I mean, again, my group shows that. We've got the French teacher, and we've got the librarian all wanting to do that. And I think if you can infuse that organically into your instruction in other disciplines, I think that makes it all the better. Again, it's the connection. I think students are, any way we can get connection and engage with our students is certainly positive. Thanks so much, folks. It's really been a pleasure.
I think we're seeing a theme from some of our speakers today about the importance of connection. So thank you for reinforcing that. And I know we have a fondness for the arts, and I think we're all pushing that in our districts. Okay, I think we're about to have our workshops. We will now proceed to workshop session E and clinic session F, which begin at 9:35 a.m. The student session, led by Eileen. I think she said we had 22 students today, Eileen? Wow, fantastic. Okay, and everybody's welcome to join the workshop. Policy into practice will meet in Marriott Salon A. Students may, however, attend any of the workshops of interest to them this morning. Workshop session G begins at 10:50 a.m. All right, so enjoy the morning, and we'll see you at lunch.